Welcome to the San Gorgonio Chapter Trail Talk series. My name is John St. Clair, and I am your Zoom host today. I'm also a member of the Trail Talk Committee. And before we start our program tonight, which is entitled the Blue Zone Project for City of Riverside, I want to go over the ground rules, and that is everybody needs to be muted except for the speakers. And if you have questions, down at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little talking bubble icon with the word chat under it. If you click on it, it opens up the chat section. And the default is sending the chat to the whole group, and you can just leave it there to send it to everyone. And put your questions down so you don't forget them. And then before we sign off, we'll make sure that we answer all of the questions. And I think at this point, what I will do is I'm going to see if I can get this up here. I'm going to introduce Julianne Anderson, who is also a member of the Trail Talk Committee and also is the San Gorgonio Chapter co-chair of the outings for our chapter. And Julianne is the one who gets to introduce our speakers. So I'm going to remove the spotlight from me, and it's all yours, Julianne.
Oh, thank you, John. And everyone should know John is the godfather of this and the host of our trail talks, and he's just done a huge amount of labor, every month getting this together. So kudos to John and to the committee. And Carla and I and John comprise the committee. Um, I'm going to toss it to John after the introduction to give us our ground rules for the trail talk. But I want to begin before I introduce our two wonderful speakers on this really fascinating program this month. Next month, we will be doing a program called Sequoia After the Fires. A couple of us went out and camped in Sequoia this past July, and we did some photography. And we want to talk to the chapter about what we saw. Uh, Lots of damage from the KP complex fire 3 years ago in 2021, but a lot of beauty and regrowth also. So, really a story of what's happening in California's oak and pine forests as personified by Sequoia National Park after these tremendous wildfires that we've seen over the past few years. So that will be January. And then John is going to do a program in February about hiking down to Phantom Ranch in the Grand Canyon, which will be much fun. So that's what's coming up. This month, we have the distinct pleasure of having two prominent Riversiders, Erin Edwards and Grace Manzo, who are helming the Blue Zones Project, which I think the Sierra Club ought to pitch in and help with. It is a newly constituted project in the city of Riverside about developing the city into a blue zone where people live long, healthy lives. And Grace and Erin will talk more about what a blue zone is and how we can help to form blue zones in within our chapter, within the Inland Empire, and within the boundaries of the San Gorgonio chapter, and what we as Sierra Club members can do to help foster the activity and the community that is part of being a blue zone and helps people to live to be 100 often. So let me introduce our speakers. First of all, Erin Edwards is the executive director of the Blue Zones Project Riverside. And Erin has nearly 2 decades of experience in policy, philanthropy, and nonprofit leadership. And she's the only person I know that lived and worked in Bemidji, Minnesota, land of my relatives. I still have cousins there. It's about 2 degrees there now. Anyway,
I was just there. It's beautiful. It's beautiful this time of year.
it is a beautiful place. Plus, being home of Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox, always. I always stop there. But Erin has recently served as the Riverside City Council member. In that role, she represented 45,000 residents and hundreds of businesses in the downtown Riverside core and surrounding neighborhoods, where she created Riverside's six-pillar homelessness action plan, sparked the Riverside Nonprofit Resilience Fund and Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and championed Riverside's community engagement policy, street outreach nurse program, wildlands public safety teams, and parks and neighborhood specialists program. And I was just past White Park the other day. It's looking very good.
Thank you.
So thank you for all that work that has helped the renaissance that is downtown Riverside now. More activity than I've ever seen in my 34 years in this area. It's just it's just bursting with activity. Erin also served as chair of the Riverside City Council's Housing and Homelessness Committee on the governing board of Riverside County's Continuum of Care and 2 terms as Riverside's mayor pro tem. Prior to her role as a Riverside City Council member, Erin served with the Equality Fund, the United Way, and the Northside Anti-Hunger Network, as well as 2 terms with AmeriCorps. She received bachelor's degrees in French and English from Augustana College and a master's degree in international development from the University of Wisconsin. Erin and her partner Liz have 2 young children, Ramona and Simon. Grace Manzo, yay Grace, is the community engagement lead for Blue Zones Project Riverside. Most recently, Grace was involved with the local nonprofit Love Riverside, where she served as the program manager leading food insecurity programs and Riverside community-wide special events. In this role, Grace built relationships with various food pantries and community-based organizations that provide vital resources to community members. Prior to serving as the program manager, Grace served in administrative and marketing capacities, working in the public and private sectors. Grace obtained her BA in Communications and minor in Human Services from Cal State University Fullerton. Yay, Fullerton. My spouse teaches there, public health. During her senior year at Cal State Fullerton, Grace was president of Lambda Theta Alpha, Latin Sorority, Inc., Gamma Lambda Chapter. Working at grassroots nonprofits and serving the community through various community-focused programs, Grace decided to pursue a master's degree in public administration with a concentration in management and leadership. Grace resides in Riverside, yay, with her husband Miguel and daughter Emily. In her free time, Grace enjoys spending time with family, enjoying exploring new recipes, maybe potato recipes, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay,
I
I'll
like
send you the link.
And exploring new cities. So our 2 amazing women, Grace and Erin. So John, before we toss it over to Grace and Erin, do you want to talk a little bit about ground rules for the trail talk tonight?
I already did.
Okay. So let's take it away, and Grace and Erin are going to share screen and begin.
Wonderful. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening and for the lovely introductions. I wanted to start, so I am now leading our Blue Zones Project Riverside, and Grace and I are tag teaming the presentation tonight, but I just wanted to start with a little story. As Julianne mentioned, my previous role was serving on the Riverside City Council, and one of really the most extraordinary things about becoming a city council member is the opportunity beforehand to canvass, to knock on doors, to talk to neighbors where they are. And so we did this in the campaign. We knocked on so many doors, and for every single person, I asked essentially the same question, which is, what do you want to see in your city? And we had many conversations, but there was one interaction, especially when I asked that question, that stood out to me. I remember I was in a neighborhood in the city of Riverside that's particularly close knit, and it was this beautiful sunny day. And I knocked on a door and I waited and I waited. And finally, the door opened, but just the tiniest sliver. I couldn't even see the person who was on the other side of the door. But despite this, I was very cheerful. I introduced myself. My name is Erin Edwards, and I'm just curious, what would you like to see in your city? And this woman, this resident, a senior citizen, she responded immediately and angrily. And through this nearly closed door, she told me about a recent moment where there was a backyard intruder near her home. And as she told this story, the door started opening a little bit wider and a little bit wider. And I could see that she had a bandage on her face from a recent medical procedure. And she became more and more animated about how understandably scared she had been, how neighborhoods should feel safe. And of course, she's right. And how somebody needed to do something about it because she said, she pointed right at me and she said, "You don't understand." And then she gestured across the street through the slightly now even more open door. And she said, "Because over there, that man lives with his wife and his kids. And that house over there, that woman lives with her son. And these people in this house over here, that's a whole family. But me, I'm all alone." And for me, that was such a pivotal moment in the way that I understood and now still understand what it means to be well and to have a healthy community, which leads us to the Blue Zones Project. In 1999, researcher Dan Buettner went with National Geographic to explore the places in the world where people were living the longest, healthiest lives, not just long lives, but healthy lives. And they took a look at the demographic data and they cross-referenced and went actually to people's homes to meet them in person and to try to understand what is happening in these places. And you can see here 5 of the National Geographic photos from the 5 original blue zones in Icaria, in Sardinia, in Okinawa, and in Nicoya in Costa Rica, and also one in California, which is Loma Linda. And in doing this research and exploring these 5 original blue zones, which were named because the researchers were actually putting blue dots on a map to identify them, hence the name Blue Zones. Even though these areas in the world have different geographies, different languages, different religions, there were not, nonetheless 9 common traits that united them. And so today, the Blue Zones Research Company, we talk about this as the Power 9. And so here they are on your screen. You can see the Power 9. And I'll say this isn't rocket science. The way that we move our bodies and what we put in our bodies, and do we de-stress? This all makes a lot of sense. And then one critical piece that speaks right to the story I told you in the beginning, which is, do you have a social circle? Friendships have been decreasing in the United States. Loneliness is an epidemic. Do people have a support system? Also, do people have a sense of purpose, something that gets them jumping out of bed in the morning? Do they know their neighbors? And so the idea behind the Power 9 is that if we work on only one of these things, but we don't think about all of them working together, we can't hope to live the best, longest life. So that's a bit more about the Power 9. And then the question was, if we know what these 9 traits are in the blue zones that lead to living better, longer, could we not create blue zones across the United States. So, Blue Zones has started to certify cities, over 70 cities now in the United States, as Blue Zone certified communities. And the way that we do this is by focusing on three pillars. They all start with the letter P, so they're easy to remember. There's the people pillar, which Grace will talk a bit more about later, reaching as many people in the population of a city as we can. There's the policy pillar, where we focus on food systems, the built environment, alcohol and tobacco policy. And then the places pillar, where we ask the question, where do people spend most of their time? Well, it's at school and it's at work. So, how are we engaging grocery stores and restaurants to make the healthy choice the easy choice? How are we working with schools in the city to help kids move naturally throughout the day beyond just at recess, or to eat healthy, possibly even local food in their own cafeteria? How do we look at work sites in our city and focus on the smallest employers to the largest employers in the city and help them ask questions such as, do offices have bike racks near their office? Do employees, are they encouraged to go for walks at lunchtime to meet with each other? Are there mentoring programs for their employees? So this work is what creates the community certification process to become a Blue Zone certified community. And the results, as this has been done, I mentioned, in over 70 cities, really are astounding. And I won't go through every one of these, but these are just some examples. And I think here you might see some results that you could expect in terms of a drop in childhood obesity, an increase in exercise, a decrease in smoking, but also some results that have been surprising from doing projects like this, such as in Albert Lea, Minnesota, a 48% increase in tourism by doing a Blue Zones project, because people hear about the work that's happening in a Blue Zone in Albert Lea and they want to go see it. They want to be a part of it. You also see here in Fort Worth, Texas, a 9% increase in city pride. And then, of course, with the healthcare system that went through a Blue Zone certification process, you see a decrease in healthcare expenditures and a decline in lost work days due to injury. And here we talk about $40 million in add-on grants just because a city was participating in the Blue Zone process. And if you add all of these cities together and the grant money that they've generated for a city, we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars just by participating in this deep dive and going through a Blue Zone process. So now I'll turn it over to Grace to share a little bit more about what all of this has to do with the City of Riverside.
Yes, thank you so much. Do we want, is there a question that you have, Julianne, right now, or do we want to
There
wait?
is. I
Yeah?
just wanted to underline what you were saying. I've actually been to Albert Lea, Minnesota. It is super cute, and I can totally attest to what you're saying, how they have made themselves into a beautiful little town. I don't know how much of it's been Blue Zones, but best tacos in the Midwest. But it's a lovely city, and surprisingly, it's at the confluence of a couple of highways there. When you start to hit Interstate 90. But um, I could see how they have made themselves into a healthier, more beautiful place. Because I was impressed going through there. Anyway,
Oh, that's good. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just point out, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the questions in the chat, but we will, as I've understood, get to them later, unless someone shouts it out, and then we're happy to stop and take a question now.
yes.
Yes. So thank you so much, Erin, and thank you so much, Julianne, for the introduction. And thank you everyone who is here today to hear us speak about Blue Zones. As Erin mentioned, yes, we have a Blue Zones project, and just like this first slide says, for me, it says, let's make the healthy choice the easy choice. So some of the questions that you may have about Blue Zones Project Riverside is, how was Riverside selected? What is Blue Zones Project Riverside? What's coming next? How can you engage? And how can Sierra Club be a partner? So with that being said, I just want to start by saying that About 2 years ago, Blue Zones team came and we had a Blue Zones Ignite phase where they determined if we were ready to be a Blue Zones project. And now, 2 years later, we are here. We are fully funded and supported by IHP, the IHP Foundation, Kaiser, Molina Healthcare, the Riverside University Health System, Public Health, and the City of Riverside. I will also add that we are Blue Zones Project Riverside, the city, but we are one of 5 cities who have been selected. And the other cities that are also participating are Banning, Palm Springs, Coachella, and Mead Valley. And we are all in our foundation period of our work here in the area. For us here in Riverside, we just completed our discovery a few weeks ago where we had some expert leaders come out to Riverside to speak to our stakeholders, to meet our community, to do a tour of our city. And this is a vital component into shaping the work that we're going to do in the next 5 years. And some of the next steps that you'll find out are that after this, we have a policy summit that will narrow our work and we'll develop our blueprint. And then we have a big kickoff community event that will happen at the end of spring 2025, where we get to share what the work will be with everyone. And the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about the community engagement pillar that I'll be working on. So with this, I will say, let's go on this screen. I will say that one of our goals is to engage at least 15% of people in Riverside over the age of 15 through MOIs, purpose workshops, volunteering, and individual pledges. And if you haven't heard what a MOI is, the word MOI is a concept from Okinawa, Japan, which is basically a social support group. MOIs help people create strong and healthy and committed social networks. And for us, we will be having different MOIs, which will be 10-week periods where people get to connect via different opportunities such as hiking, walking. It could be cooking classes, maybe potato cooking classes, we don't know, but different ways for people to really connect with others and feel included. We will also have purpose workshops. Purpose workshops will help people have a clear sense of purpose to help them live longer and have higher work performance, and they're happier. Our workshops will help people discover or rediscover their purpose. They will learn practical strategies to live their purpose each day and make valuable connections with like-minded individuals. We will also be highlighting volunteer opportunities or creating volunteer opportunities with partner organizations to help people connect and give back. And our last option will be individual pledges, which a pledge would be a personal commitment to adopt lifestyle habits based on the principles of Blue Zones. And then Erin will be clicking on the link so you can see a preview of our website. And this is basically what our pledge will be. It will be on our website. People will be able to sign up and can commit to completing 5 actions during a 6-month period. And we will be rolling out our individual pledges in the spring-summer of 2025 at our kickoff event. But this is a preview. Basically, you would select 5 different action plans that will help you live longer and healthier. And then you would do a pledge. You would sign up on the bottom. You will put your name, your promise, and where you live and whatnot. And then it will have a little tally or counter of how many people are filling up the pledge. And that's what I'll be doing. I'll be focusing on. So I invite all of you.
Yeah, you'll notice that it says 0 because we haven't officially launched it yet. This is just a preview for you to see, but in May, then this will be live for everyone. So we hope you'll take the pledge if you live in Riverside.
Yes, we hope for everyone here to take the pledge, to get involved in our volunteer opportunities, in our MOIs, purpose workshops, and find a different way to connect with us. So on our next, and then here I want to show you guys a video of what the Fort Worth Blue Zones community looks like, just to give you guys a preview.
The whole idea for Fort Worth and for what we're doing here is we have to change the way that we think about what exercise is.
Blue Zones is not about going to the gym. It's about gardening and just moving and taking walks with friends. It makes it so doable.
We launched a fitness Sunday one time a month to totally bring the body together and just create this awesome synergy. It is encouraging people to make healthy choices, to make better choices. It's encouraging them to eat right and then to do it as a community.
Here at the airport, we made it a part of our incentive program. We offer the facility for them to work out. We have a golf league, tennis league, badminton league, just to keep our employees moving and engaged.
Walking school buses is to encourage kids to get out, walk, be active, and they're enjoying it, and they're feeling good about themselves. If we can encourage that and we can get people up and active, then we got them hooked, and hopefully we can keep them for life.
Schools have to adhere to certain policies about not having junk food readily available, which is a Blue Zones concept, making the readily available things like healthy fruit. There's been a change of kids being interested in like, oh, I didn't know this was considered healthy. This really tastes good.
We don't only offer them the youth athletics, the sports, but we also offer them mentorship during practices or games. We'll offer fresh fruit as a healthy snack, and the kids literally just eat it up.
The doctor said that your blood pressure's high and cholesterol unbalanced. Company-wise, we started this health initiative, and I've incorporated a lot of healthier choices in my life. We do ergonomic stretches on a daily basis before the start of the shift. Just get a little range of motion going. Honestly, I feel a lot better, like a person that knows that he has purpose in life.
We're trying to help people live longer by making choices easy for them. It shouldn't be harder to have to walk than it is to drive. It shouldn't be harder to get the healthy options than it is to get the drive-through and the fast food.
We need something in Fort Worth you can eat and not feel disgusting. We added the charred avocado and we added the pineapple. We do 15% off if you walk to Taco Heads. Seeing Fort Worth people walking on Montgomery Street is really cool.
This is for my body. Cooking for me now is essential, like eat, like feel new women.
We've partnered now with almost 500 organizations across Fort Worth. 131 work sites, 44 schools, 66 restaurants, 20 grocery stores. This is really collective impact, and it's about all the community focusing on one thing. That's what it takes to move the needle, and it's amazing to be part of that.
Thank you, Erin. So now for our next slide is, I hope you were inspired by that video and a little preview as to what Riverside can look like, what changes we can make, what can we incorporate into our daily lives. And the next question is, how can Sierra Club partner with us? So based on what we know, your love for hiking and walking and being outdoors, we were thinking, well, what about hiking moais? What about walking moais? But we definitely want to hear from you other ways that you feel you would want to be involved with Blue Zones. And we will open up that question in a little bit. And in the meantime, until we have our kickoff in the spring, summer of 2025, if you want to be in the loop of what Blue Zones is doing, you want to be the first to know, you can definitely sign up for our newsletter, which we will put the links in our in the chat box. And this is the page where you get to sign up and you get to be part of our newsletter. So we'll definitely add that link to the chat. And then there is also a Blue Zones documentary available on Netflix that you can watch. And just to get an idea of the original Blue Zones and all the work that has occurred. And then for the next slide, it's our contact information. If if you want to reach us, we have Erin Edwards' email right there. We also have my email. Please connect with us. Let us know any resources, anything that you would want to connect with us with. And then if there's anyone here that is from one of the other cities that's participating, from Banning, Coachella, Mead Valley, Palm Springs, please let us know, and we will be happy to connect you with the group, the team that is leading the work in those cities. And that is it for us. Erin, I'm not sure if you want to add anything else, but we are ready to answer questions, if not.
No, nothing else to add now. I think we want to see what your questions are here.
Many questions. Let's start from the beginning. First is, how do we foster a healthy community? And you've answered that in part by, the things that you've seen, the 9 different things that you've seen in Blue Zones. But if you were to just explain to your mothers, or to explain to, an average community member, what does it take to foster a healthy community?
For me, it's putting together the pieces, thinking about community health as not just what we're putting in our individual bodies, how we're moving our individual bodies, but thinking about how we're connecting with each other. So yes, moving, but not just, do you jump in your car, pull out your driveway, drive to the gym, and then alone on a treadmill for an hour, and then back in your car, back in your driveway, back in the garage, right? What are you looking for ways to move naturally with your neighbors around the block? Are you out in your garden? Are you sharing the produce with other people in your community? It's thinking about these building blocks of health, but how we do them together for the benefit of us as individuals, yes, but for all of us.
I wanted to call on some of our Sierra Club members who are here on the Trail Talk. I'm going to start with Norm, and then I'm going to call on Patty and Christina and Kathleen. What are some examples of healthy communities that you've seen in places like Apple Valley, Norm, and Moreno Valley, Christina, and Patty and Kathleen, Claremont and Kathleen, wherever you live? I'm looking to see what could be the seeds for Blue Zones in various communities in the area. Places where people in groups perhaps engage in healthy activity. I'll start with you, Norm. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. In relation to Apple Valley, we're really fortunate to have very good clean air and very good clean water as well. So we're off to a bit of a flyer there. And there seems to be a pretty strong community feel. We get a regular newsletter, and it talks about all the exercise regimes they do and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely part of the way there, without any doubt whatsoever.
Christina, what do you think?
Well, as far as Moreno Valley, I used to go out there and do things with Moreno Valley when they had more of they actually had a trails board and a trails committee, and they were committed to, doing stuff out on the trails and leading hikes. It's still happening, but in a very pared down form, and I don't really participate in that anymore. I just do my own hikes, or with my sons, or with the Sierra Club and stuff. So I don't know. I just am not that involved with the stuff that's going on in the city. Mostly the only involvement I've had was fighting the warehouses and all the diesel trucks, which I don't think contributes to Blue Zone, in my opinion. But
maybe an opportunity for Sierra Club to up our outings in the Moreno Valley area to fill in. And Patty, what do you think? What's going on in Claremont?
Great. Okay.
Hey, there you are. Hi.
Am I there?
Yes.
You're there. Oh, I was just going to say there's a lot of opportunity if you want to be engaged in hiking. Like we have the Wilderness Park and we have the Thompson Creek Trail. And then there's the Senior Center and they have all kinds of classes, including exercise and all kinds of educational classes. And then of course, Charlie and I belong to it's called the Claremont Club, and it's a I guess you call it private membership health
The
club.
gym. Yeah,
Gym. Yeah, yeah.
beautiful gym.
So, and then of course we're so close to the Claremont colleges, we can go over there for lectures for intellectual stimulation and there's music programs. So there's a lot available. And so if you want to be involved, you can be. So I guess that's the key is to have it available.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity there. And
Yeah.
Kathleen, can you hear me? Kathleen, are you there? Maybe not. But I'm thinking, Erin, in just in terms of kind of good material, we've got a lot of potential activities. I'm thinking especially back in my days when I was doing the Loma Linda Lopers in the city of Loma Linda, they really emphasized group activity for all ages. We had people that were walking and running with that club. It was a weekly club. We met on Sunday mornings at the rec center there at the university. They had people from like 18 to 80, 18 to 90. I mean, walkers and runners of all speeds, really elite runners, and then people that were just doing 15-minute miles walking. And they were centering around training for the marathon, the LA Marathon. But it was such a healthy group and it's huge. And then the Riverside Roadrunners broke off and became a similar thing here in Riverside out of the sports park. But group activity, meeting with your friends, walking with them in your whatever speed group you were in. I mean, Maggie and I were typically like, the 8 to 10 minute group because we walked the marathon for several years. And an opportunity just to see your friends every week and talk with them and walk. It was but it was groups. I'm really thinking about the importance of groups here. What do you think, Erin?
I think the group piece is really critical. Doing things with friends. You may have noticed in the Power Nine that one of the 9 pillars, if you will, is wine at 5. And so it was found in these 5 original blue zones that people were drinking a glass of wine every day. But it wasn't that they were drinking wine it's that every day they took a moment to come together with their friends to sip a glass of wine. And so it always, for me, it comes back to with friends, with community. I think that actually is the most important part.
I'll just add one more thing and then we'll get to our next question. Maggie and I were just at the Riverside Aquamotion holiday party. I thought, oh, I wonder if anyone's going to show up. Oh my goodness. There were like 100 people at Linda Hicks' home up in Canyon Crest for the Aquamotion people. Aquamotion is the resistance training fitness group out of Riverside Rec and Parks. And I've recently joined it. It's a total kick and it's totally populated. It's like a pool full of people. And you have people that have been doing this for like decades. I mean, there are long-termers that have been doing this at all ages, from, midlife adults to older adults. And it's a good workout. But I was shocked about how social it was. Linda does this party every year. And I thought, oh, there'll be like a handful. Oh, no. It was totally social and packed. I mean,
well, Andra from Aquamotion has made me promise that I will get myself to the pool and do it so I can see it for myself. I've heard absolutely the same. I did want to point out, not to interrupt, but you might be looking at the data that we're presenting from other cities and saying, well, how do you know? And for me, this is the most rigorous and exciting part of a Blue Zones project. And also the part that scares me the most, because we're using Gallup whole wellness index data. So right now we're out doing a baseline survey so we can see how people are reporting their health in this day as we're just starting out. And then we'll check in every year. Gallup will check in every year, and it's random sample data. And 5 years from now, at the conclusion of this project, the poll will go out again, a random sample. So we'll actually be able to see how community health has improved or not. And I say it's the part that scares me the most, because if we were only surveying people who participated in a MOI, who went to a purpose workshop, who worked with Blue Zones at their office, then I think it'd be easy to show results that said people felt either the same or better about their health after a Blue Zones project. But because it's a random sample, Gallup might be interviewing someone who has never heard of Blue Zones, but because we have done the work over 5 years of being in work sites and at schools and out at community events, even if they haven't engaged with us directly, maybe their neighbor did and they heard about it at the end of a driveway, or maybe their child heard about it in school and talked about it over dinner. And so we're looking to create that ripple effect that gets to a tipping point so we can show real positive change in community. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware about the way that we're tracking data, because I think that that's important.
I can totally see, and I want to invite people that are here on the group to chime in. I can totally see, you doing your outreach to these groups like the Sierra Club, like the Riverside Aquamotion people with Parks and Rec, like the Riverside Cycling Group, and telling them about the Blue Zones and getting them interested in, and knowledgeable about what this means. Because I've heard a lot of people say, "What is that? What is a Blue Zone?" And I had one little anecdote. We had our office party, and we've had kind of tumult in my office. I work for the city attorney in Los Angeles, new leadership, and it was very disruptive. Everybody was kind of unhoused and rehoused in different places physically in the office. So we've been trying to build community and kind of an office culture. And one of my colleagues was saying, and I'm looking for, we have, these monthly lunches, which are really important for kind of group building. But one of my colleagues was saying, and I'm looking forward to walking with Julianne in 2025. And it's like, people I didn't prompt it. They were just thinking of doing, something together during, half an hour during your lunch break. But you get people thinking about doing things together in groups, which I think is missing. And I think is part of people feeling kind of lonely, especially since the pandemic, when we've kind of isolated a lot. So
Hey, I have a couple comments.
Yes.
So, two things. One, when Patty was talking about Claremont, I do a lot of hiking in the Claremont Wilderness Park. And there is a group called Claremont Walks. And there are like 20 to 30 people all wearing their Claremont Walk shirts. They all appear to be retired. So I'm not sure what group is sponsoring this, whether the city is or it's from a retirement home, because there are retirement homes in Claremont. But they walk the Thompson Creek Trail almost every day, and a whole bunch of people. So that kind of thing is going on. The other good model, the City of Laverne Recreation Department sponsors the Trail Trekkers, which is a hiking club in the city of Laverne, and they have the sponsorship of the Recreation Department. And it's nice when the city can, and I'm not sure which started first, whether the city organized this or there were some people who were hiking and went to the city and said, "Hey, can you give us a sponsorship?" I'm not sure how it got going, but it's a long running group of people, and they do something every weekday together. And most of the time it's hiking. Sometimes it's riding Metrolink into LA and spending the day in Olvera Street. It's different activities that they do together. And then one other thing, Christina had a question, and I think this is important. She says, "Can we sign up for the newsletter if we don't live in one of the cities mentioned?"
So I put the link to the newsletter here in the chat. You absolutely can sign up for the newsletter just to see what we're up to here. And you can also come and participate in events and see it for yourself. But I love the question underneath it, which says, how can I encourage my city or my county to start a Blue Zone project? And so I really wanted to emphasize what Grace said about how it took us 2 years to get here. And it was our public health department that was looking for models to address upstream health. And I think about that Desmond Tutu quote that says, you can keep pulling people out of the river, but at a certain point, you have to look upstream and say, why are people falling in the river? And so our Riverside Public Health Department was really trying to understand, why are people falling in the river, and not always having to address health when people already have diabetes or they already have heart disease. And they had heard about this community transformation model from Blue Zones that we've now shared with all of you. And they thought it sounded like a really great way to address those upstream concerns. And then Blue Zones wouldn't come to a community until it's fully funded, because they don't want you to spend your 5 years having to fundraise for the work. They want you to be able to do the really deep work. So it took putting those partnerships and those funding agreements in place before we were finally able to launch our work this past July. So I would just say, look to your public health departments in your counties and see if they've heard of this model, if they have any interest, and encourage them to reach out to me, to reach out to Grace, and we'd be happy to share what we're up to here and provide conversations with our own public health so they can see how it happened.
Erin, following up on that, talk about how you connected with so many funders. You are an incredibly well-funded project. Are you sharing this funding with Palm Springs and Mead Valley and Coachella, or is it just for Riverside? And how did this funding from, all these groups come together?
So the overall project, the regional project in the 5 cities, is a $40 million project. And just in Riverside, we're the largest project. And so we are a $20 million project over 5 years. And Greece had shared it was the Inland Empire Health Plan and their foundation, Kaiser Molina, and Eisenhower has just come on board in the last couple of weeks, as well as a funder of the whole regional initiative. And even I didn't realize how monumental this was, to not only have these funders with this amount of money here in our comparatively under-resourced region, but also to have these funders who are competitors, these competing health plans who came to fund the same project over this time period. And when we had them all in a room in October to kickstart the project, they called it co-opetition, because the health plans are very engaged, of course, in doing good work in the communities where they serve and where their employees are, but also it is to their advantage if people are healthier, and then the plans don't need to pay out, right? It costs them less money the healthier we are. So they're interested in funding work like this to try to improve the health of our community. And then, as Grace mentioned, to do work in a city, particularly in the deep policy way that we'll be doing the work, we needed to have the literal buy-in of the cities. So we knew that they'd be interested in doing this work. So the City of Riverside has come in for 1% of the overall project cost, so $203,000 just here in the city. And the cities of Coachella and Palm Springs and Banning have done the same. So I mean, I think it's a really important piece of the story to hear why are all these funders at the table, and how there was so much energy around funding a program like this.
Another question kind of comes into this. Can the Sierra Club be a MOI, and would other groups be good starting places as well for taking the pledge, or being a MOI, kind of a group or a place where you can begin this. I don't know if people will come to a Blue Zones meeting, but I can see the Blue Zones going to these, to the Sierra Club, to Aquamotion, to Riverside Roadrunners, to the Riverside Cycling Club, to the public library for their reading groups, to the Riverside Master Gardeners. I can see all of these groups being open to you guys because you fit right into what the groups are doing.
Yeah, and I'll answer this that definitely once we have our newsletter rolling out, we'll be announcing all types of events that we have going on, whether it be a hiking moai. Yes, Sierra Club can lead one, but we can also have you participate different moais, right? We might have reading clubs, we might have hiking, cooking, any club. So we will be sharing all these different types of events and opportunities through our newsletter, our social media. For anyone that wants to take part of it, they can.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I just want to add, Julianne, I think you also pointed out something really, really important, which is I don't think most people are looking for one more thing, one more meeting to have to attend, right?
Right.
And so Grace and I and the rest of our team, we talk all the time about how if we're doing it right, we're going to where people are and trying
Right.
to find ways that this will work within their lives, not creating one more thing on top of it that they have to attend every month, but just again, thinking how we integrate and meet people where they are.
I wanted to bring in kind of maybe a across the pond perspective. Norm, what was the attitude in the UK when you were there, about kind of group exercise or healthy activities? Was it any different than ours here in the States?
No, I think beyond any doubt was, the Sierra Club is in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about it is that it's a smaller country, and of course there are historic sites just everywhere. So you find an awful lot of people belong to, they don't call it a hiking group, they call themselves ramblers.
Mm.
And the finish of it always ends up at the pub, but neither here nor there.
Wine at five, Norm.
Yeah, like a good idea to me. So yeah, they there's no question about it that that's what they do, and I think we sort of don't realise that there's an enormous amount going on in our community that involves exercise, that involves people getting together,
Yeah.
and the problem is that it's not collated so that we have a really good idea of what is actually going on and the extent of it. And I actually think that a lot of it, I like the idea of an area being a blue zone, and that way you can get somebody who's going to start bringing everybody in together
Yeah.
to deal with that sort of thing. I mean, one of the things I always say about the Sierra Club is we have numerous groups in the high desert area who are involved in the environment, but we're never together.
Yeah.
And together there is a strength, and of course then you get a good cross section of ideas.
Yeah, and being physically together. I mean, I love Zoom. It's been a wonderful tool, but there's something about going out on a hike or a walk together.
Yeah.
And I wanted, Erin and Grace, I also wanted to mention something that, and Norm, you probably could see something like this in the UK too, but whenever I go to Flagstaff, they have the most incredible walking and hiking trail system. Uh, Flagstaff is known as elite runners go there to train because it's 5,000 feet. It's relatively high altitude, so a lot of elite runners train there for the Olympics and for other events. But they have for their public there, and there's the University of Northern Arizona there. They've got the most incredible walking and hiking paths everywhere, up into the nearby forest, throughout the city and the area behind the city. Claremont has something like this, and you see this in a few other cities in the area. And Riverside has its own paths, the uh, Victoria Avenue and the path along the Santa Ana River, and some resources that could be like this. But it's kind of that build it and they will come, having walking paths that are safe, where people can go out regularly, like the Riverside Roadrunners, like the Loma Linda Lopers, and just go outside and partake. I just wanted to point that out, Erin and Grace.
Well, and to your point, we were just on the call with the City of Riverside today because we were made aware of a grant opportunity that provides planning grants for projects in transportation and active transportation. So our role is not to be a part of the grant. We don't need money, which I've never said any time ever before in my life. We don't need the money, right? But our role is to be the convener, to bring together, as Norman said, the groups that are doing the work, but maybe not knowing to talk to each other. And then that's how you create those strong grant opportunities. That's how you bring more resources and investment to your city. And so what we were talking about with the city today was how we could possibly support a grant application where they were working on connecting a trail system within the city of Riverside that would allow people from disadvantaged neighborhoods to be able to connect to the river trail and to connect to Riverwalk and to businesses where they can't necessarily walk there now. And so I do think there's so many opportunities to take advantage of the trails we have, but also think about how in the next 5 years we can draw investment to our city and to our region to link and create trail opportunities that don't currently exist.
Well, and I did want to, oh, Deb, you had a question?
I can't figure out how to, electronically raise my hand.
Okay.
But this, when Norm brought up collating existing opportunities, I'm thinking there's so many out there. I mean, I'm involved in several, and there's all the meetup groups, and I'm involved in a group in Riverside County that works with UCR on a climate change study that involves 2 big hikes a week. And it's a wonderful group of people. And it's been life-changing for so many of us. And I'm also part of the San Jacinto Hiking Club. And, there's just so many opportunities out there. I'm not always aware of all the opportunities that are out there. And if there was some way to, as he said, collate all these opportunities and get that information out to people, because there's people sitting at home thinking, I wish I had somebody to hike with, and they don't know where they can go. And so I think starting with the meetup groups, the hiking meetup groups, there's dozens of them. Are just connecting people to where they can get in touch with them. People don't know necessarily that there's meetup groups that do hiking a couple times a week. And it's easy to become a leader. And if there's doing something too ambitious for you, then you start your own group that isn't quite so ambitious,
Well, such an
I
important
love that
point.
idea. I think about, I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I was talking to another parent the other day, and she said, oh, I just wish that Riverside had more activities on the weekends. And I thought to myself, we do not live in the same Riverside then, because I feel like there are so many activities on the weekends. We have to put a hard rule in our house that you can only do 3 activities a day, right? And so I think to your point, it's just sometimes it takes a while for people to know where you look for that information. And so point well taken that it seems that there's a resource needed to help people know where the stuff is, where the people already are. And I don't know what Blue Zone's role can be in collating that calendar, but I do think we have a role to play in building momentum of connecting people to each other.
Well, if something just came to mind, Erin. I mean, in terms of how we at the Sierra Club can help, we can certainly help by having outings and getting the word out in Riverside and other communities about our outings. I think having regular outings like we have, I do a first and third Sunday of the month, a dawn walk up Mount Rubidoux. But I've also been thinking of doing sort of an all ages, a little easier walk at the Citrus Park, which is ADA compliant, it's paved. So if you have small children, even children in strollers, if you have elders that need to have, less of an elevation gain, or they're in a walker, or they're using a cane, it's open to all different activity levels. And walk through the Citrus Park. You maybe have a docent lecture from the rangers there, because the Citrus Park is historic. It's wonderful. But things like that are all ages. The other thing that comes to mind about Riverside, I am so incredibly impressed with the public libraries. Judith Oth left a legacy of not only a wonderful central library, but beautiful branch libraries all over the city, from the Marcy Library, the Arlington Library, in the East Side, just wonderful libraries. And they're new and they're clean and they're inviting and they're wonderful. Um, Places where you can use as a home base for these sort of activities, to get out to begin walking in the community. If you and of course the senior center is wonderful, and very active. So I'm just thinking of these sort of um, centers or nodes where people can be and the Blue Zones message can get out. And maybe the Sierra Club could have some kind of activities there, in these buildings, or using them as a starting zone. Just brainstorm. Yeah, Chris.
I love all those ideas. I love the idea of a walk for families with young people, so intergenerational. And
Yeah.
it sparked a new idea for me, Julianne, which is if you're walking at dawn at Mount Rubidoux, perhaps you could take my son who is awake at dawn and I will sleep.
The
I have
girl take it.
I have a question.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, Chris.
So, when you're rolling out this stuff with the Blue Zones in Riverside, you say in May it's going to be live. So, are all these different cities you mentioned, Banning and whoever else is part of it, are you doing it cooperatively with those cities, or is each city doing it separately?
Each city is doing it separately for the most part. We are guided by our blueprints, certainly the pun intended, blueprint for Blue Zones. And so each city is putting our own blueprint together where we identify what are the policies that we want to implement here that make sense for our specific city? What are the indicators and measurements that we want to keep track of for the people pillar, the health measurements that make sense based on the needs that we see in the city of Riverside, and then Banning will do the same for Banning. What percentage of the largest employers do we hope to reach and approve as Blue Zone approved businesses in the 5-year time period? So we're each guided by our own blueprint and accountable to that work and to our own steering committees. And Blue Zones, the company, has never before launched 5 different cities in one county at the same time. So we're a bit doing something exciting and unprecedented here. And so I think about our policy work, and to the extent that policies that we'd like to change are county level policies or higher, we also have such a great opportunity to work with Banning and Coachella and Palm Springs, because it's the same county board of supervisors that we would be talking to change the policy. So we're just able to grow more momentum across the county instead of just working in our own little pockets. So it's mostly each city doing their own thing, unless there are ways that we can have economies of scale.
That's what I'm thinking, because I mean, if this starts going well when you launch this and in these different cities, to expand it like to at least like a bigger area, Western Riverside County for starters. So it's not just all these individual places, because I think you could probably get more people on board that way. And I was just thinking of something. I used to work in a high school, and at the beginning of the school year, they had this thing called Club Rush, where all the different clubs in the school would have like little booths or tables, and kids could go around and get information about joining the clubs. So the Blue Zones could do something like that too, especially after launch, and get different organizations, like all these different hiking clubs, environmental groups, and healthy food groups, or whatever, certain restaurants, vegan things, or just, doesn't necessarily need to be vegan, but still, if you had a thing like that, and you had all these different groups there where people could go and say, oh, I can learn more. I can find out about these groups. I can get involved with as far as cooking, walking, gardening, whatever, and have something like that for all ages.
I really like that. Oh, sorry, Julianne. I just wanted to respond. So I had a meeting on Friday with the Chancellor Isak of RCCD, and he has committed to joining our steering committee, for which I'm very, very grateful. But also he said, someday you could see him start to see it in his mind how all the pieces fit together. He said, well, someday, we want Blue Zones as part of our curriculum. We want students to be fellows at the Blue Zones office. And so he thought bigger and bigger and bigger. And then he said, but it starts with a club. We're going to create a Blue Zones club on the Riverside City College campus, and then it grows from there. And so I think you're absolutely right about creating clubs in schools and then watching the snowball effect.
And to that end, I was thinking, just as the Loma Linda Lopers and the Riverside Roadrunners, use the LA Marathon as an organizing activity, what about having in Riverside and maybe even in the other cities in Riverside County a 5K, a Blue Zones 5K? And it's something where you can, it's easy. People can walk or run, people of all ages. You can organize around it. You can have booths, you can have information, the city can get behind it, or maybe you can incorporate it into various city activities. The holiday parties, Dia de los Muertos in October, 4th of July, all kinds of things. But having kind of an organizing principle, kind of like what Chancellor Isak was saying at Riverside Community College, of having a club, or throughout the college, Moreno Valley and Norco, having clubs on campuses. It's a physical organizing principle. Anyway, just a thought.
Maybe. And I know Grace is an extraordinary event planner and event organizer. So if anyone could put on a race, it would be Grace. And I think, maybe that's the goal, or maybe the goal is saying, well, the Mission In Run every November is already happening. We don't have to plan it, but we can spark training Moais for the Mission In Run. And then the event isn't our event, but the work leading up to it is absolutely part of what we do.
Right. Or work with the Riverside Roadrunners, or that kind of thing as a MOI. But just kind of brainstorming on this. I wanted to talk to some other people here that are on the group. I wanted to talk with Julie and Tiana and Raymond, starting with Julie, if you can hear me, and Carla. Julie, what are you thinking? Do you have just brainstorming about this stuff? Where do you live, and what do you think about what you've heard?
Well, I'm just kind of dropping in. I get the newsletter from the San Gorgonio chapter. I'm actually in the Angeles chapter.
Oh, okay.
But this whole program sounded really interesting to me. So I'm in the Orange County area.
Right.
So yeah, it sounds great. And so yeah, I'm just getting information and eavesdropping on you.
What city are you in Orange County?
Well, I live in, and most people don't know where this is, Villa Park, which is actually between Orange and Anaheim.
Okay.
It's in the Anaheim area.
Right. Got it. Good. Carla, I wanted to talk to you about what have the various mountain groups been doing up in the San Bernardinos around community hiking or community groups?
Yeah, we do have one group that is very active. It's called the San Bernardino Mountaintop Hikers. And they were the ones that really filled the void when the Sierra Club wasn't able to meet in person.
During COVID.
Yeah, during COVID. We have, great opportunities to get outdoors. I'm sure there's meetup groups up there as well. I'm not so familiar with the Big Bear area as far as groups. I know there's the Chirp Nature Center. They do a lot of bird watching stuff.
Right.
which is if you've got the patience for that, that would be a great thing to do.
Right.
But
Is Audubon active up there?
No, not really.
They're more.
I actually, our executive director is on the Audubon board, the local Audubon board. No, they don't. They did sponsor a couple walks at the Pebble Plains, the Baldwin Pebble Plains Ecological Reserve with Tim Krantz, Dr. Tim Krantz, who is a professional in the Pebble Plains. But no, that was the only thing I really see them involved with. But we have very small towns up in the mountains, Green Valley Lake, Running Springs, Arrow Bear. And within the small towns, there's a real sense of community. They do a lot of little potlucks, little activities, all kinds of stuff going on.
Looking out for
in
each
the
other.
community. Yeah. So I think the small communities it's easier, I think, for them to have community-wide activities because they're not going to be overwhelmed with too many people.
Right. Right. And anonymity. I mean, people know each other.
Yeah.
So, well, I also wanted to get to Tiana. Tiana, what are your thoughts on all this? Where are you coming from? Oh, you're muted. Can you unmute? Still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, sure.
Okay, well, I'm in Banning, and I really didn't know anything about Blue Zones until I saw that documentary on Netflix.
Right.
And that really, really excited me. And then I thought, I happened to have to go and have some surgery done at the Loma Linda Hospital in Loma Linda, which is one of the only 7 Blue Zones in the whole world, right? So that was exciting to me because I felt very comfortable being at that hospital. I felt, very secure about that.
Yeah.
And people there are so health conscious, and my favorite health food store is there too. So then a couple of weeks ago, I opened up the Record Gazette, which is our little local newspaper, and right on the front cover, it says Banning Blue Zones Project Unveiled. And I really got excited. So I'm just kind of waiting till the holiday season is over, and then I'm going to call and I'm going to get totally immersed in this project as much as whatever I can do.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to hear that, Tiana. And I put in the chat, Ruben Gonzalez is the executive director, so my counterpart in Banning. And so his email address, so you can reach out to him. But he, just like I am, we're forming steering committees now, we're forming sector committees. And so we're looking for volunteers.
Oh, I should call. I shouldn't wait till after the holidays, I guess. I should just.
Oh no, write him now. I mean, he'll get to it whenever he can. But well, it's top of mind.
Is his information here in this article? Because I don't remember. I read it
It's here in the chat. It's Ruben, Rueben at bluezones.com. Blue
Wait a
Zones.
minute. What is it?
Ruben, Reuben.
Reuben. Okay.
At bluezones.com.
Just Ruben at bluezones.com?
Yep, that's his email. It's Ruben Gonzalez.
But is it Gonzalez or is it just Ruben?
It's just Ruben. Oh. It's Ruben at bluezones.com.
Okay, got it.
And his full name is Ruben Gonzalez, and it's Gonzalez with an S at the end.
Oh, wait a minute. Bluezones.com. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, great. Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Send him an email.
Yeah, I will.
And I wanted to get to Raymond and Deb. Raymond, what are your thoughts on this? You're on mute. There you go.
I live in Ontario, the city of warehouses, and aside from I did some work a couple of years with Amy's Farm, but the city kind of pulled the plug on that.
Yep.
And we don't really have any walking trails that I can think of, except for neighborhood trails, small neighborhood trails. The city has bought land, I guess, for a very large park in the south part of town, but they haven't started building it yet. I think there'll be kind of a long path around that eventually, but there's really not any support from the city council here to do much of anything that's healthy.
Well, that park, I wonder if they can put in a walking trail, because I know that the sports park here in Riverside has a walking trail around it. It's hugely popular. Everybody and
Yeah.
their brothers out there walking dogs, walking themselves, running. It's a gravel trail. And then there are nice wide sidewalks within the sports park among the soccer fields and the baseball diamonds and the basketball area and the kids' play area. So you can walk. I mean, there are tons of walkers in the Riverside Sports Park, and that place in Ontario is going to be gigantic.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that I'm aware that they are going to make a walking path around it, but I imagine it's pretty much concrete. I don't know, but and I think it'll be, a couple miles around, I guess, but still.
Yeah. Worth exploring, because they built that sports park here in Riverside, and boy, oh boy, people are using it.
Well, they're building a baseball stadium first, so that's going to take a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, thanks for the information from Ontario. Deb, where are you coming in from? Oh, Orange County, right? Oh, you're still on mute.
I'm in Ukaipa, and that's Riverside County.
Okay. Okay, got it.
And I'm just I'm aware of the Coachella Valley Hiking Club and the San Jacinto Valley Hiking Club, and there's just dozens of hiking clubs out there, and I'm sure there's still people out there going, gee, I wish I had somebody to hike with. And so I go back to my original point that it would be nice to have some way, like if someone to reach out to these hiking clubs that are already kind of health conscious and say, hey, we've got this Blue Zone project going on, how would you like to get connected? Whether it's online or some kind of, clearinghouse, I don't know, but some way for people to find out about all the existing opportunities. That's one thing. The other thing that I've talked to friends about how if I ever won the lottery, what I'd like to do with the money is to provide healthy, whole foods to people in communities where, one, they don't have time to cook vegetables, clean and cook vegetables. They don't have time to prepare them. They don't have the money to buy them. I want some benefactor that's gonna pay for all that.
Yeah,
so you can go to underserved communities and make good, healthy food available to them without making them feel like they're a charity case. And just pay for the minimum, let the community do the work. I just would love to be able to do that. Except for I never buy a lottery ticket, so it's probably never going to happen.
Deb, I want you to win the lottery. Go buy that ticket. I love that idea.
Well, but you raised such an important point, because I don't know, Erin, if you guys get your vegetables like at Corona Farms on Victoria. They're off of
sometimes our family, because we live right downtown, we go to the downtown farmers market often.
We have got several now, really beautiful farmers markets, some couple along Victoria, and there's the one there at Van Buren. The Corona Farms has the best vegetables in the area, and they're cheaper than the grocery store. I mean, so in terms of like fresh nutrition, I mean, Deb, you raised such an important point, because so many areas are food deserts, and they get these crappy, end of their shelf life vegetables and food. You can tell, a neighborhood by its grocery store. Is it a Ralph's Pavilions, or is it a Vaughn's Pavilions, or is it like a Food for Less? What kind of community is, and the quality is reflected in the grocery store?
Well, and it's just not just the availability of good whole food. It's the fact that the people who would benefit from it the most are working 2 jobs and raising kids, and the easiest thing to do is take your kids to McDonald's.
Right.
And buy stuff out of vending machines. And I just, in an ideal world, I would love to see people be able to get decent, healthy food as easy and cheap as that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's exactly right. It's what Grace was saying about, Blue Zones is trying to make the healthy choice the easy.
Yes, I keyed on that phrase too. Yeah, make the healthy choice the easy choice.
Yeah.
And I
Right
think
now it's not.
that's right. And I also think it's not insignificant and it's not surprising that several times just in the last hour and 20 minutes here, so many of you have talked about land use as you've been responding to the presentation, the warehouses, the land for farms, and Corona Farms that Julianne was mentioning. It's in Riverside, what we call our green belt. And we're so lucky to have this green belt, this agricultural circle around our city. And that particular farm, because they rent, there was a moment where the owner of the land wanted to sell it, and they wanted to sell it to the developer who could pay the most for it. But because our city had strong land use policies in the green belt, the landowner quickly realized that they couldn't sell it for the price they were hoping because the density that's allowed in that particular plot of land in the green belt is so low. And so now the farm is going to be able to continue to do their good work, their farming, to provide produce to the community. And so the built environment, the land use, is so important, which is why it's one of the policy pieces in a Blue Zones project. It's how you get farms instead of warehouses, how you find affordable housing instead of another big box store. And there are appropriate places for all sorts of land uses, but we have to think about what the community needs and make sure it's a balance.
Oh, can I do want to put in a plug for that area, just because I think is historically significant. And you may already know this, Erin, but Dallas Holmes, who is like politically on the other side of things from me, but he's a true blue Riversider, and he wrote the ordinance back in the 80s, making that a low density area, and it has served Riverside so well. He's a retired judge now. I haven't seen him in years, but I worked with him at Best and Krieger when he was a city attorney there serving Corona and a number of other communities. But kudos to Dallas, because he wrote that thing, and that's kept that green belt green. And it's important to have relationships with municipal attorneys and city council members and whatnot that care about these things, because it makes a huge difference for a city. And maintaining ties with Best and Krieger, with people that know, and the city attorney of Riverside, who know about these ordinances, I think is huge, to keep land available for us to have a Gless Farms and have the local citrus and have the local farmers markets in the area, because it says a lot about the availability of cheap, fresh, beautiful produce.
Yeah, that's great if they could stick to that. And if Riverside has done that overall, Moreno Valley has not been that way. Moreno Valley just changes the zones to suit the developers. So
that's the truth. Carla, I see a hand.
Yeah, so there's a saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
And my concern is there's a lot of opportunities out there, and yes, you have to go out and seek them. But there's like a mentality that some people, I guess maybe it's the way their habits are, the way they were raised, or like we were talking about time restrictions. They're working 2 jobs. They got no time. They got, take their kids to fast food because it's easy and quick. It's like, how do you change the mindset of individuals who are stuck in the habit of an unhealthy lifestyle?
Well, I'll start to answer that. And Grace, I'd love your thoughts here too. I know you've done so much work in the community, but what's important to me about Blue Zones, and it's right in our purpose statement, is that a Blue Zones project is for everybody everywhere to live better longer. Everybody everywhere. I want that printed above our door in our new office so that we see it when we walk in and we see it when we walk out. This isn't just something that's for the people who can afford the most beautiful organic produce. This is for everybody everywhere. And on Grace's second week here at Blue Zones, she led, oh no, did we lose Grace? I'll talk about this, and when she comes back, she can talk about it more. But she led a workshop in Spanish with a group in our Arlanza neighborhood, a group of women who are community leaders. And one of the first questions that they had was, is this really for us? Mm-hmm. And I was so grateful for their honesty, for their candor. And they were concerned that it would be a project coming into their neighborhood saying, this is the way you're supposed to eat, and this is what you're supposed to do, right? And instead, we said that that's not at all what Blue Zones is. It's for everybody, everywhere. And it's about thinking of small ways and things that we can add that will increase overall health. So, for example, when we're approving a restaurant as a Blue Zone restaurant, there are steakhouses that are approved as Blue Zone restaurants, even though Plant Slant is one of our Power 9. And it's not because the steakhouse decided they suddenly wouldn't serve steak, but it's because they added more vegetable options. And so for me, it's about those little, one of our colleagues says little nudges or things that we're adding to someone's life, not something that we're taking away. It's not meant to be punitive. It's not meant to say there's only one way and it's this way and you have to do it like this. And so I do think that that will resonate with neighborhoods and with communities.
And maybe just meeting people where they're at. If two things. I mean, I can see people in various communities where they may be meeting at churches or at the library or at the community settlement house or, various places throughout the community. And Blue Zones taking some time to meet with people and speaking there or getting in with the minister or getting in with the director. The other thing is, I know when I first started here in the area in the early 90s and I wanted to get into shape. So I joined the Loma Linda Lopers. And it was a revelation. It was so many things. It was a group. I made a lot of friends there. It was really fun. It got me into great shape because you're preparing for a marathon. And it wasn't hard. You started very gently. I mean, it was like a half mile the first week, and then you up it to a mile, and then 2 mile. I mean, so this doesn't have to seem like something hard that you're later going to drop. It's sort of a you can change people's habits gently. But I think the point of the Lopers was it was something I wanted to do. So if people, especially this time of year after the holidays, they want to lose some weight or they want to go and get healthy after all this indulgence, good opportunity for people to learn about Blue Zones and maybe thinking about that and taking your pledge.
Well, and it's about, again, it's back to the environment. It's about changing the environment. So I was listening to Dan Buettner, who founded Blue Zones, talk a bit more about the spark for his research. And the Blue Zones isn't a diet, right? And it's been found so many people who are on diets, you make change for a little bit and then slowly go back to your old habits, right? Habits are very, very hard to change. And so in order to combat that, we need to make lasting change to the environment that people are in that will force healthy behaviors. So are you one of the items on a checklist to become a Blue Zones approved business is, do you have your parking spaces further away from the building for those who aren't mobility challenged? So people have to walk a couple of extra steps to get inside the building. And so I think that speaks to the question of, well, you can lead a horse to water and it's so hard to change behaviors. That's why we have to change an environment.
You know what makes me sad is back in the day, like numerous years ago. I mean, we could just go to the local elementary school, middle school, high school, or whatever when it wasn't in session and walk or run around the track. Well, all of the schools are fenced and fortresses these days. You can't do that anymore. But there used to be a lot of people that used to do that in the day. And for especially for senior citizens and stuff, or older people, or who don't want to be out on a trail with the coyotes and the bears and stuff, that was a great place to go. You'd walk around, a mile or two around the track or run or whatever. That option doesn't exist anymore for the most part, unless you have one of those big parks that you're talking about that has a trail around it. So it's like you have to drive everywhere to go someplace these days. And I don't like just walking around on city sidewalks. That's not my cup of tea. I have to have some nature around me.
Well, I wonder, you're right in that schools are pretty much closed because I remember being able to walk around my old high school in LA, but the sports park is super well used here in Riverside. I'm wondering about the community colleges. Erin, can people run the track at the community colleges like Mo Valley, Norco, and Riverside? Is that open to the public?
I don't know.
That's kind of a good question because I mean, Christina raises a huge point. Safety.
You used to be able to do that, but it's now for years you can't anymore now.
Well, I know at like the Claremont colleges, you can use their track. Maggie and I have gone down there and we walk the dog through the colleges and the track is open. But I think that raises an important issue. Every city has places, and Norm, I don't know where it is in Apple Valley, but I know like in Riverside, it's along Victoria Avenue. There's a very popular trail, and during the day, people walk constantly on that thing. And I remember in Apple Valley, there's isn't there a trail along the Mojave, kind of around Mojave Narrows, over by Kemper Campbell Ranch, I think, Norm, that kind of area. I think every city has something like that, where there's a safe place where people walk. And that's a place where Blue Zone should go and direct people or find people.
Well, I know the Scottsdale project was showing us because like Riverside, but I think worse. I've never been to Scottsdale. It's very, very hot in the summer. And so they have walking moais in their mall. And so trying to find the places where people can go walk and walk safely and walk in less harsh conditions. So I agree, but Greece is doing a lot of thinking about what we talk about as third places. So where are the places that people go that aren't home and aren't work to congregate? I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Grace.
Yeah, and I apologize. My computer was low and it just shut me out, but I'm on my right now. But yeah, just thinking about those third spaces for us, it's really having that accessibility for all of our neighborhoods to have access to these third spaces where they can walk, access to, if there's corner stores, access to stores that have produce available for them, so that maybe the corner fast food is not the first choice, but they have another choice. So that's where my mind is at. But as everyone is speaking and giving ideas, I'm definitely writing notes and just getting creative with like all the different opportunities we can bring to our community to make that healthy choice, the easy choice, and accessible to them.
Absolutely. And Summer, I didn't realize that you were with us. I think I just saw.
I just made it. I just
Cool.
came in. Yeah. Sorry.
Outstanding.
I'm late.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about Fairmont. I mean, it would be great if it was a little safer, but
It's really fine during the day, but if you go early morning or as it starts to get dusk, it's not a great place.
Not so much.
It's fine, yeah.
Not so much. But I just had an idea though. Another third place a lot of people go, Grace, dog walkers. I mean, dogs are like walking machines, and some of the best people that the people that I really started to get to know in the neighborhood were other people with dogs, and they're out walking. It's safe. You walk in the morning and the evening. The Humane Society sponsors walks throughout the year. I mean, that's another community to tap into, and that makes,
Yeah.
when people are out with their dogs, it's safer.
Oh, Mary S. Roberts Pet Adoption Center in Riverside. You can check out dogs for a day for a walk. You could only take them to specific areas, I guess, but you can do that. You can even take them for an overnight.
Yeah.
You have
Great
to sign
idea.
up and everything and be vetted.
Great idea. And that is one of our options, I think, on our pledge. If you saw, it was to adopt a dog and to encourage you to walk more, because a lot of people, they feel unsafe walking by themselves. So having that dog helps them feel, one, safer to be out in places, maybe when it's dark. And it does encourage them to walk in the morning, walk in the middle of the day, walk at nighttime. So it definitely is it's a companion, and it's a motivator.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to walk the dog. Dog needs to be walked.
There's another option too. Actually, yesterday I went out to Tuckeets Canyon in the which, I mean, you have to pay $15 there unless you're military, and then you get in free. But they have ranger led hikes. They have daily ranger led hikes right now, 4 times a day. But for $15, or you can buy an annual pass, or like I said, be military and be free. That's at Tuckeets Canyon in Palm Springs. The Indian canyons were Palm Canyon and Andreas Canyon and stuff.
Right.
They have a senior citizen discount at $7 to go in there. They also have ranger led hikes and stuff. And even sometimes some of the state parks and stuff have ranger led hikes. Not very often, but that's also an option to look into, because I've done those kind of things to get out there and hike with someone else instead of, not be alone on a hike.
Yeah, and that's another great idea.
Well, I think it would be nice, circling back to the Sierra Club, and we probably have to wrap up because it's 8:45. This has been great. I mean, an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I would like us with the Sierra Club to start thinking about blue zones, especially those of us that are sort of in the Riverside area, and that's Summer, me, and Christina, to lead hikes, and maybe have a couple of regularized hikes where people will know that once a month you're doing this or that. I'd like to encourage you, Erin and Grace, to come and speak to our groups. And even if it's just a handful, to talk a little bit about blue zones and encourage us, encourage people to be aware of what you're trying to achieve and kind of spread the word.
We'd love to.
Most certainly. I would love to join a hike.
Yeah.
I would love to work with you to develop or to look into ways where we can I love your idea when you talked about the citrus park and that being an area to, bring more hikers or walkers to walk with their families, with their little ones, or just to bring some of our community there, our ADA community that wants to be outdoors and they want to connect, but making it a safe space for them to also feel that there is, a walkable area for them. And I love all that. So I would definitely like to join.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind. And maybe people that are out in the Palm Springs or Banning areas, or if we think about going down to Mead Valley, and then those of us that are in other communities, Apple Valley, Ontario, thinking about ways that we can maybe encourage this in our cities. Because I think it's just a great idea. I love the idea of living till I'm 100. My grandmother did and had a great life. But a lot of it was just being kind of spunky and eating well. And good luck, obviously. But there's a lot to what you're saying about, having habits that that help you to stave off disease and help you to stave off loneliness. And those feelings of connectedness, those are so important. And circling back, Erin, to your story about, door knocking and the woman that was feeling alone, finding ways for that woman to find something fun, like Aquamotion or like the Roadrunners. I mean, that thing is a kick. I had no idea. It's a kick. And to get people to come and just be part of a group, it's really fun. And it's got exercise as a side thing.
Right. Well, my mom is 76 years old and she lives with us. And I feel so lucky to be in this intergenerational space and to have my mom here with us.
Yeah.
And I really think that the Janet Goski Senior Center saved her life, moving to a new city and connecting with people. But when she was asking me about my new role at Blue Zones, it was her first introduction to this concept of Blue Zones. And when I explained it to her, living better, longer, and she was really quiet. And then she looked at me and she said, Erin, a lot of my friends at the senior center, they don't want to live longer.
Mm.
And it's that isolation piece and being alive but not feeling good, not being in good health. And it was a really stark comment that she made. So I think there's so much work to do, and I just feel really grateful that we get to do it, and we're really honored to have been invited tonight to share more about it.
Well, and I want to loop John and Norm and Raymond in. I mean, you guys, you put the whole idea of being senior on its head. I mean, John could kick my butt. He's hiking up to 11,000 feet. I'm not in that kind of shape these days. And I think part of what Blue Zones might be able to do for a lot of us is, your mom or those of us that are in our 70s and 80s. I mean, I saw it with the Lopers. You can get yourself ready for a marathon. It's not out of hand. You can be physically very active. So I think that's something that we need to really examine with new eyes. John, Norm, Ray, thoughts?
You just got to keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you get older, the more important it becomes is to have it be routine, that you get exercise on a regular basis, which, when I was working full time, I couldn't do. But when you're retired, you really can do. And I was told when I retired, someone told me, John, now that you're not working full time, your new job is to get regular exercise so you can have a quality life during your retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. Norm, what do you think?
I totally agree with John. I think he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing how fast you can get out of shape when you get to be our age.
Yeah, that changes.
Think for yourself.
Ah!
Who was it that 76 was old?
Right. Hey.
So I put in the link to the San Gorgonio Chapter YouTube channel. This Zoom session has been recorded, still being recorded. We'll stop it soon, but I'll try to have that posted by tomorrow morning. And then if you know people that probably would be interested in this but weren't able to make the Zoom meeting, send them the link to the YouTube channel and they can listen to the whole thing.
Before we wrap up, anybody else want to comment? Ray, Patty, Carla, Christina, Summer, anybody feel like having a comment here about what we've been talking about? Ray?
Not I, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
You bet. Much to think about. And we want to do our part. Sierra Club wants to do our part. Our outings program is set up for just this sort of thing. And we're open to the public. We're free of charge. We're open to all ages, 18 and above adults, and parents with children. So Grace, I'm going to take you up on your suggestion about the Citrus Park. That would be a good regularized hike in the city of Riverside.
Yeah, let me know. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited with all the ideas that everyone has been giving us. And I wrote everything down as much as I could because I like to bring these ideas. So I want to thank everyone that chimed in, everyone that gave an idea, whether it be from their area, because that helps us build ideas here in Riverside, what we could do, and just bringing the main thing is making it accessible and making it the easy choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
Mm-hmm. And I put our email addresses in the chat, so you have that one more time. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, okay. I just saved the chat. Do you know how to save the chat? There's those three little dots down at the bottom.
Yeah.
You just click on it. It says more, and then you click on it, and one of the choices is copy.
I love it. I love it. Got it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Erin
Thank
and
you.
Grace. Fabulous program. Much food for thought.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording.